Kids love bikes, well, hopefully most of the time, but I think from my experience, keeping them happy sometimes includes making sure they've got some of the right kit, so here are my tips. Make sure you get the right size bike for your kid and don't go too big too soon. They should be able to reach the floor easily when they're starting and get a really good solid balance. But when they're bigger and better, you can up the seat a bit to get them pedaling just that bit easier. I started my kids on a 12-inch wheel balance bike, then went to a 14-inch with pedals and brakes, then to 20-inch with added gears, which seems to last the kids quite a lot longer than the previous bikes. And then you move into the market where there's loads more choice and specs with proper kit like disc brakes. Where Lucas went from a balance bike to using pedals, I actually used some reins to kind of keep hold of him whilst he learned how to pedal. Or taking off the cranks to get used to the brakes while still treating it like a balance bike can be really good for a couple of weeks before you then put the cranks and pedals back on. Helmets, full or open face. Most big brands now have child-specific helmets that have a lot of the same technology you'll see in the adult versions. So I've got some of the Smith ones, that's from the really small ones up to slightly larger. Again, they've got like these retention systems, a good buckle, even technology like MIPS in there as well. So make sure that your kid knows how to wear them as well, because make sure they get them fitting properly over their forehead. Quite often we see kids and their helmets roll back on their head. It's maybe because it's not adjusted properly with that retention strap, or it's a surefire sign that the helmet's getting a little bit too small for their head as well. Also, take a look at some of the adult helmets. This is actually an adult small full face helmet, but this Smith helmet does fit my kids. It's a 51 to 55 centimeters size, so it does actually fit their smaller heads. If you are going to go for a full face helmet for your kid, I think one of these lightweight enduro helmets that are breathable and not too heavy are also a really good option, so you can wear them comfortably and not get too hot. Protection is a really good idea. My kids have just started loving riding the pump tracks and the BMX tracks. So super important because they do fall off, and actually quite often they smash their shins with their pedals as well. Especially Miles, my 3-year-old boy who's learning to ride a pedal bike, just come off a balance bike, he's often smashing his shins. So there's a few different options here. I'll show you a couple. This is a nice, still fairly lightweight fox pad, but it's got that plastic on there as well, so super protective. You can go for sort of more technical, lighter versions that are probably slightly better for pedaling. Having said that, my kids don't seem to mind wearing these at all. They can go over jeans as well. I find that works really well. Same goes for elbow pads. I think it's a really good idea to have knees and elbows because they do fall off them. Although you will tell those don't have any marks on them, whereas these are absolutely shredded already. Plus, as fiddly as it is, kids' gloves are a really good idea because, you know, when you fall off, you put your hand down. It's the one thing you can cut and graze really easily. And with your younger kids, they can be an absolute faff getting them on and off, but still a good idea. A top tip for keeping kids happy, I think as soon as they've gone from balance bikes to pedal bikes, can be quite hard, especially taking them out in the woods. It can be really physical for them. So these things are absolute genius. So this is a tow rope that one end goes over the nose of your saddle, the other one sort of goes around their bars, and it pulls them along really easy. Obviously it sort of stretches out so they're not too close to your rear wheel. You do have to tell them when you're stopping because they'll bash into the back. There's a few options. There's that one that is called a towee, and this is made by Kids by Shotgun. So this is a good option. Same thing. You've got that can go round the stem of their bike, the kid's bike, and then back in there, super easy. But also I do like this option because it goes in a nice little bum bag, and then I make the kids carry that themselves. It's very useful. Now, a lot of the kids' smaller bikes, even some 20 inches, don't have space for a water bottle cage to go in there. So it's a good option for kids to carry their own water in a hydration pack. Camelback actually do these. These are mini mules, so a small, cuter version of the adult size mules. So you've got a 1.5 litre reservoir in there, plus space to carry loads of snacks. I actually even encourage my kids to carry a little multi-tool in there so they can learn how to look after their bikes themselves. There's loads of little pockets and bits in here as well, so they can put toys and stickers or whatever they might find on the ride in there. They're lightweight and vented. They even have an emergency whistle on that strap as well. Plus there's some reflective bits on there if you do find yourself riding on the road. Clothing for riding bikes for kids doesn't really matter, I don't think, quite so much, but you can, shameless plug here, get some amazing cute little GMBN jerseys, exactly the same as adult larger versions in that sort of technical material. So if they do get sweaty in their pedaling, that's a great option. Other than that, quite often my kids just go out in their normal clothes. What I will say is they do wreck their trainers. So quite often I'll try and buy them some really cheap shoes, especially when they're on balance bikes. They'll drag their toes down the road trying to slow themselves down. So I try and buy them some cheap old Vans, something like that, with a bit of reinforcement around the front so they can get them muddy, wear them out, doesn't really matter. All right, so there's some of my top tips for trying to keep your kids happy when you're going out for a mountain bike ride. Like I say, some of the protection, some of the things I think really do matter. Let me know if I've missed anything obvious, if you want any extra special tips for those mountain bike parents out there, and hopefully you get out with them and enjoy yourselves on the trails.